Country road talk, country road, that one, man, that jacks me up, dude. Take me home to the place I belong.
Rupert says in a perfect world, he'd love to move back onto that property with his daughter and son-in-law again, but he thinks it'll be at least a year before that happens. Max Goldwasser, ABC 10 News.
Wow, it's hard to imagine it's been a year, Tim, and you see the recovery in a major urban center. We talk about the recovery, which is dragged on from Helene in a very rural part of western North Carolina where we cover, but to think this is a metro area and there's still people that have not recovered from that a year out. It's been a crazy year for them.
Yeah, and neither of us lived this or were out in that area at the time or anything, just kind of consuming it from afar. But to me, it was just striking. And whenever you have these Southern California fires, the speed is always something that kind of jars me. You can see these things go from very little to all-consuming of neighborhoods just like that. And it happens very quickly. A lot of it has to do with what they call those Santa Ana winds out that way, which I believe in this case they were gusting over hurricane force at times, like 70, 80, 90 mile per hour gusts in some of the peaks. But they come in from the deserts and then they ride down the mountain ranges, and it's just impossible to fight those, or at least to stop those from happening. So boy, can it go up quickly. And I think the relative humidity was down like 5% in some of those cases. So you really have bone dry air and wind that's just blowing it around. Fires can be, one of the scariest types of weather hazards, just because there's not anything you can do to stop it. And the loss is often all or nothing. Like you either have total loss or you're spared. So it's just scary stuff.
Yeah, when those winds get that high and dry like that, they call it the Diablo winds, right? The devil winds, because they're so bad. And as you mentioned, it's a literal firestorm. There's just the firefighters just have no chance. And I did want to mention, because we are going into our spring fire season, Tim, and the significant wildfire potential maps got updated at the beginning of January. They still have all of the Western Carolinas for January in the above normal risk. I'll back it up. Also for February and also for March. And they highlighted in discussion that because of the drought, the dormant vegetation, it's a normal fire season, but also the Helene debris is still part of this issue. So it's something, even here in the Carolinas, we're going to have to watch closely as we get into the late winter and spring months. So we're out of time for today. We covered a lot of territory. We'll talk more about Panthers and that storm coming up tomorrow, but stick around. We've got more news coming up after the break.
Hi, everyone. Good evening to you, and thank you so much for being with us here on Live Impact News. I'm Vanessa Rufus, and we're kicking things off with a big national headline today, the very latest in that ICE-involved shooting out of Minneapolis from this morning. Just within the last hour or so, we saw DHS Secretary Kristi Noem addressing the matter at hand. If you're just catching up on the headline here, a woman, 37 years old, shot and killed as authorities say she was trying to block an ICE operation that was underway. Homeland Security saying that this woman tried to run over agents with her vehicle. We have heard other folks challenging that narrative, including the Minneapolis mayor, Jacob Frey, who says he's seen the video circulating online showing the encounter between agents and this woman, saying that the video doesn't seem to support the narrative that DHS is saying. With that, we want to bring you the latest here from Kristi Noem.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for being here tonight. I want to start out by addressing the loss of life that we saw here in Minneapolis today. Any loss of life is a tragedy, and I think all of us can agree that in this situation it was preventable. I've spoken to the president today on the situation here on the ground. I also just got off the phone a little while ago with Governor Walz and spoke to him as well. I want to reiterate first with all of you the facts of what happened today. At 10:25 a.m. Central Time, Immigration and Customs Enforcement were carrying out lawful operations here in Minneapolis. Because of the adverse weather that Minneapolis has seen in recent snow, one of the vehicles became stuck and ensnared in the snow. Law enforcement were attempting to push out this vehicle, and when a mob of agitators that were harassing them all day began blocking them in, shouting at them, and impeding law enforcement operations. ICE officers and agents approached the vehicle of the individual in question, who was blocking the officers in with her vehicle, and she had been stalking and impeding their work all throughout the day. ICE agents repeatedly ordered her to get out of the car and to stop obstructing law enforcement, but she refused to obey their commands. She then proceeded to weaponize her vehicle, and she attempted to run a law enforcement officer over. This appears as an attempt to kill or to cause bodily harm to agents, an act of domestic terrorism. The ICE officer, fearing for his life and the other officers around him and the safety of the public, fired defensive shots. He used his training to save his own life and that of his colleagues. He was treated at a local hospital, has been released, and is now with family. I encourage the American people at this point in time to pray for him, but also to pray for the deceased's family and her loved ones. Today alone, in this country, there have been 4 different domestic terrorist attacks on federal officers by the ramming of vehicles. 3 of them happened here in Minneapolis. We've seen over 100 of these vehicle rammings happen in just recent weeks, and this must stop. ICE alone is facing a 1,300% increase in assaults against them and an 8,000% increase in death threats against all of them. In fact, the very same officer who was attacked today had previously been dragged by an anti-ICE rioter who had rammed him with a car and drug him back in June. He sustained injuries at that time as well. And let me remind you why we're all here in this city today and why we've been here. In communities across this country and here in Minneapolis, we're just enforcing the laws that we have in this country. For years under President Biden, tens of millions of dangerous criminal illegal aliens, terrorists, and suspected terrorists were allowed to invade our country over our southern border. They were allowed to steal, to defraud, and to perpetuate violence against American citizens. Regardless of who your mayor or who your governor is, President Trump promised every single American that he would make America safe again. He promised every single American that he would work to protect them from dangerous criminals. Since Governor Walz has been in charge of Minnesota, we have seen homicides go up by over 50%. That's also during Mayor Frey's tenure as well. Since President Trump took office, Governor Walz has released over 470 violent criminals back onto the streets here in Minneapolis. He has another 680 of them still within his jurisdiction that he could give to us today to face the consequences for their crimes. Because Governor Walz and Mayor Frey refuse to protect Minnesotans, and instead they protect these criminals, that's why we are here. And we didn't just show up yesterday, we've always been here. But we're surging operations because of the dangerous situation we see in this country, and because we're no longer going to allow illegal criminals to damage and harm, to kill, to sexually abuse, to proliferate drugs, and to steal American taxpayers' dollars. This state has faced unprecedented immigration fraud. It's seen unprecedented benefit fraud. Individuals were allowed to come into this country and set up fake companies and fake nonprofits and divert billions of dollars away from American citizens and those vulnerable citizens who truly needed the services from those programs. This city has burned before, and your mayor and your governor let it happen. President Trump is not going to let that happen. He and our federal law enforcement officers are here to bring peace and to bring public safety and to ensure that criminal activity is stopped and that people who perpetuate it will face consequences. Since we have been here in recent weeks, we have arrested over 1,500 criminals off of the streets. Our law enforcement has arrested murderers, known and suspected terrorists, child pedophiles, and other brutal criminals that were protected here in this city. We should all work together to protect our citizens. We should all protect the men and the women and the families who live here in Minneapolis, who live in Minnesota, and live throughout this entire country. I want to thank you for being here, and I want to thank you for focusing on the important work that our federal officers do and make sure that we're focused on the priorities of this country, and that's making sure that we're keeping people safe. With that, I'll take any questions that you may have.
Secretary, no, Mayor Frey called the claims of self-defense BS. How do you respond to that?
I say that he doesn't know what he's talking about. It's very clear that this individual was harassing and impeding law enforcement operations. Our officer followed his training, did exactly what he's been taught to do in that situation, and took actions to defend himself and defend his fellow law enforcement officers.
Secretary, can you expand too on the agent's injuries? The president said that he's lucky to be alive.
The officer was hit by the vehicle. She hit him. He went to the hospital. A doctor did treat him. He has been released, but he's going to spend some time with his family.
Can you clarify whether he was hit before or after the gunshots were fired?
I can't, but the FBI will continue the investigation and release more facts when it's appropriate.
Secretary, no, has the agent been relieved of his duty, or can you give us any other insight?
No, we're following the standard protocol procedures we do in situations like this. When there's an officer-involved shooting, we make sure that we get the facts and that we are getting the statements from everybody involved and make sure that investigators are handling the decisions.
Secretary, no, have ICE operations paused because of what happened today?
No, we're still out on the streets doing our work to get dangerous criminals off of the streets of Minneapolis.
Can you tell us any insight into your conversation with the governor?
You know, Tim and I have known each other for years. We served in Congress together. We both ran for governor the same year and have served as governor at the same times. So we were colleagues, and we discussed what happened here today. We have two very different viewpoints of it. I talked specifically about the fact that we have laws. They need to be enforced. He knows that I believe sanctuary policies have protected criminals and placed a priority of them over the citizens that live here, and he knows we'll continue to do our work, and I encouraged him to work with us. We've never had a cooperative arrangement with law enforcement here. Whenever we've done investigations, whenever we've done police work, when we've been doing what we can to bring people to justice for the crimes that they commit, we haven't had the cooperation of the state of Minnesota or the city police here under the mayor's direction. If you talk to any of these federal law enforcement officers, they'll say that when they call for backup in a situation, that it's hit and miss. They were grateful today that the police chief and local law enforcement showed up at the scene and helped secure it to make sure that nobody was harmed and that the FBI could do their work. But I would encourage them to work with us, that we could form a partnership that would make sure that individuals have the opportunity to have a safe Minneapolis.
Secretary, will body cameras
Over here.
Do you stand behind the use of force, and will any of those use of force guidelines be altered or changed in the future?
You know, it's clearly established law that a vehicle driven by a person and used to harm someone is a deadly weapon. Deadly force is perfectly lawful when a threat is faced by a weapon. So I do believe that this officer used his training in this situation, and we'll let the FBI continue the investigation to get it resolved.
So just to be clear, the shooting happened before or after
I know you keep asking that, but that doesn't mean that the FBI is going to give you an answer today. There will be an investigation. We want to make sure that it's factual. What I would ask is that as we go forward from here today, that we all remember that our job is to have peaceful discussions. I'd encourage our local law enforcement and state law enforcement to work with us. We are going to continue to operate here in Minneapolis and in the state of Minnesota to make sure we're going after dangerous criminals. One of the key focuses that we've had here is a focus on individuals who are sexual predators and are involved in child exploitation. When I was just here yesterday, we arrested individuals who were charged with criminal assault and sexual assault and people that exploited children. Why would you want to keep them on your streets? President Trump has promised to go after the worst of the worst, and that's exactly what we're doing in Minneapolis. By not working with us, Governor Walz and Mayor Frey are putting those criminals and prioritizing them over our children and our grandchildren.
Governor Walz said that he is not giving any heads up when there is going to be.
And that's simply not true. He said that to me on the phone too, so I'll get him the documentation that he needs so that he knows that we would love to coordinate with him. He doesn't give us access to any information on criminals, let us know who he's detained, doesn't honor our detainers, and has individuals and criminals in his jurisdiction that he won't turn over us today too. Yes.
You mentioned that the officer involved today was once before raped by a vehicle. Can you explain the difference between that instance and today? Was a firearm discharged then? If not, what was the big difference?
I won't speak to that case right now, but we can get you the details and the information on that. But the facts of the matter is he's an experienced officer. He's been in situations like this before, and he certainly has been out there and followed his training today.
Given the threat of vehicle encounters, are you going to change the way police?
You know, people need to stop using their vehicles as weapons.
Are you going to change the
This domestic act of terrorism to use your vehicle to try to kill law enforcement officers is going to stop. And I'm asking the Department of Justice to prosecute it as domestic terrorism because it's clear that it's being coordinated. People are being trained and told how to use their vehicles to impede law enforcement operations and then to run over anybody who gets in their way while they go out there and try to disrupt peace and public safety. And Americans deserve better.
So can you say what they were in the National Guard?
That hasn't been a part of the discussion. I know Governor Walz mentioned some of that earlier in his press conference, but we've got law enforcement officers here that will continue to work, and we're hopeful that the public recognizes that the work that we do every day makes America safe again.
Can you get
With that,
into the operation that was happening at 34th Portland?
we had law enforcement officers that were out there doing an enforcement action, and a vehicle got stuck in the snow, and so they had called for other people to come and help them get that vehicle out. Those officers were trying to free the vehicle when the harassment started, when the protesters were out there impeding their vehicles and preventing them from leaving the scene.
Was it at a particular home or business in that intersection?
I won't speak to that.
Can you speak to the crime that person may be committed that you were going after? And you mentioned sexual crime. Okay. Will body camera footage be released?
I will let the FBI decide.
Were they on target today when they were in that neighborhood?
They were returning back to headquarters, I believe, to start a new operation, had just completed one.
Was it an ICE?
Well, thank you. What's that?
Was it an ICE vehicle that needed to be pushed?
I was one of the vehicles that ICE officers were using. But remember, when we operate in a task force model. So we have other federal agencies that work with us, and we're very grateful for that. We have CBP officers, the FBI, DEA, ATF, all of those all work with us every day in a task force model, and we appreciate it. We'd love to have the state police, and we'd also love to have the Minneapolis police chief and his team be alongside of us while we're out there doing those enforcement operations.
Were the agents later?
With that, we'll get you more information as it is revealed, but thank you and everybody. Let's work together to make sure that we can continue to help the city be safer, get more criminals off the streets, and ensure that our public has the opportunity to pursue the American dream in a city they can be proud of. Thank you.
All right, once again, that's the very latest briefing from Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem on the deadly shooting of a woman during an ICE operation. You heard her side of things as she kind of explained how she says the agent that was involved with this operation felt like he was fearing for his life and believed that this woman intended to run him over with an SUV. We have heard folks who are disputing that narrative, we should mention, including the Minneapolis mayor, Jacob Frey, who says he's seen video of the encounter, and he says that the video essentially suggests a different narrative. We heard Secretary Noem mentioned a few times Governor Walz, the governor of Minnesota. He has addressed this incident as well. He did so just hours ago, and we hope to bring you that side of things in just a little bit. Meantime, as you saw in our 3-box, we have a lot of live activity happening here on Live Impact. So after our quick 2-minute break, we intend to return with a pretty active feed we're seeing out of New York City as protests are sparking there against ICE related to what happened today in Minneapolis. We'll be right back. Hi, folks. Thanks for sticking with us here on Live Impact News. We are back with reaction that continues to pour in from around the nation following the deadly ICE-involved shooting of a woman in Minneapolis, Minnesota this morning. We just shared the latest briefing from Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem the last several moments ago. And now we want to get to some feeds that we're seeing elsewhere, including a live feed from New York City tonight, where in Foley Square, protesters have gathered to denounce the actions by ICE today. And we've seen several speakers taking to the podium here. So let's listen in for a bit.
We leave this place more connected than we arrived. May we refuse despair. May we carry each other forward until justice is real. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you, Reverend. In our tradition, there's a prayer that is known a lot, which is called the Mourner's Kaddish. It's a prayer that we say when we mourn people, literally at funerals and when we remember them. But powerfully, that prayer has nothing to do with death or mourning, but instead is calling on us to pick up the flame. We believe that every human soul is a part of the divine. We believe that every human being is a necessary part of this world, and when that is removed, there's a part of the world that died along with them, and that it is our responsibility now to fill that in, to take up that torch, and to keep doing that work. We say Yit Gadal v'Yit Kadash Shemei Rabbah, literally, may it be amplified, may it be sanctified, the great name. And only once we have taken that action, only once we have made sure that their names are not forgotten, that the power and the light that they carried, that the power and the light of Nicole Good, of Renee Nicole Good, and that the power that we put that into action Only once we have achieved that, and once we have achieved justice, only then we can pray, Oseh Shalom B'Muhammav, may the one who makes peace above bring peace to all of us. Only once we have justice. Amen.
Amen. Amen.
White roses in many traditions stands for innocence and death. And the White Rose Society, if you remember Sophie Scholl, a student in the dark days of Nazi Germany, sacrificed themselves in order to keep hope alive. Our hope is that you will take one of these roses, and I think my colleague Brendan Brink is around here somewhere, and that as we walk, we leave them at the foot of this building. So as we go forth, may what we have said with our lips, we believe in our hearts and show forth in all we do and say, and may the soul of Renee, Nicole, rest good, rest in peace, and may the souls of all the departed do so as well. Amen.
Amen. Amen.
Thank you to our leaders who have come here and joined us, including each and every one of you who is out here raising your voice. We're going to march, so please follow the banners. There will be flowers that are given out. I'm not sure how many we have, but there will be some there's some in the front for folks who are close to the front, and then others in the crowd. We're going to march, and please follow the direction of the marshals. Thank you.
No ICE, no KKK, no fascist USA.
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 No ICE, no KKK, no fascist USA. No ICE, no KKK, no fascist USA. No ICE, no KKK, no fascist USA.
And we did want to mention, folks, that this is not the only area in the country where we are seeing anti-ICE protests tonight as we speak. We see out of New Orleans a gathering that is happening there. Also seeing scheduled for actually the bottom of this hour a protest to start in Miami. So if we have images coming from that feed, we'll get that to you here on Live Impact as well. Meantime, you saw our 3-box had the live aerials from Minnesota. Protests are, of course, underway there. And we're also following news back here at home, a big transportation meeting with that newly formed Transportation and Transit-related board. They are discussing priorities for Charlotte's transportation and transit over the next several years. So we'll try to bring you some of that meeting when we return in 2 minutes. Welcome back, folks, to Live Impact News. We're going to turn now to some news from our neck of the woods here in Charlotte, as we are seeing the brand new transportation board that was just created, having its meeting to discuss some action items and also map out the future of transit and transportation for the Charlotte area for years to come. Let's go ahead and listen in right now.
Yes, Julie. Yes, Jocelyn, and then Anthony.
Go ahead, Anthony. Julie Eisel, Mecklenburg County. Is it not clear that we are indemnified in this language?
So, several members brought that up, and there was a part in the language we got from the Gold Triangle that says something about a personal insurance policy, but we've cleared that up. If you look in what's in this book, the whole thing's been struck to correct it. So, who's going to talk to that for me over here? Brad?
Yeah, I think specifically, and I asked this in our first meeting, this is really important because there is a major lawsuit out there. And does this pull us all into being parties to that? You know, I think that particular issue is really important to clarify.
The last part is something we need to do through transition. But let's talk to just the question you have about indemnification in the bylaws.
Yes, sure. Thank you. Yes, so the board members are actually, they are indemnified, and the language was rewritten to make sure that there was a provision in there that talked about if a board member had an umbrella policy or a personal policy, that could be invoked, and that was struck because obviously if a board member was taking action in their official capacity as a board member, then they should be fully indemnified for that, assuming that action is legal or, you know, not a criminal or other aspect of these rules. And so that provision was struck. The other thing I would note
Before you do that, make sure you tell them who helped you with that. We talked to the risk manager for the city.
That's true, yes, we did consult other attorneys within the city attorney's office on that matter. I would also add, too, that as a public official, North Carolina has public official immunity. And so we also have governmental immunity. So there are several layers of defenses available to all the board members if there is a lawsuit that names a board member. So just for that information.
Jocelyn's next.
Hi. Again, I don't want to, Jocelyn Nolly, City of Charlotte. I don't want to sound like a broken record, and I missed this with the past motion. Going forward, I'd like to see these motions amended with a time frame. It's too loose for me.
Okay. Any comment on that?
Anthony's next.
Yeah. Okay. Yes, Anthony. Did you have a question? She had a question.
Yeah, do we need to,
pass it around.
do you want to make an amendment to his motion?
If I can.
Please, yes.
You can make an amendment to his motion. She can amend.
We have a motion on the floor.
We have a motion on the floor. It's in discussion.
So discussion on this is, I'm sorry. Can you repeat it? Well, let her, she has the floor. Can you repeat it real quick?
So I would like to see Mr. Curran's motion amended to include a time frame in which we come to a decision to adopt the bylaws.
You can accept.
Well, I'm having something passed around. I didn't know if I was going to pull the trigger on asking for a committee because I wanted to see how this went.
Yeah.
But what you see is a committee structure and a charge that I came up with that you're welcome to bring into this conversation as a motion if you want to. So I just wanted to let you know I came prepared if we want to defer to a committee.
Okay.
Mr. Lindsay?
Yeah, man, I forgot what I was going to ask now. My question was really for clarification on your motion, Ned. It sounded like your motion includes us having a deliberative discussion as a full body in one of the upcoming workshops. Is that your intent?
I think that would be an efficient manner. I'm open to anything. I just know that that's on our calendar, and it's a unique opportunity.
Okay. And the other question I have for you was if you had mentioned earlier about receiving comments, do we have some method by which we as board members can submit comments on these items so that they can be collected and assembled and redistributed to the full body? Do we have a mechanism for that in place?
One of the reasons why I didn't support the last motion, Mr. Kern, and everybody else, is because of that very reason. I think all we're doing is kicking the can down the road. If we don't get it all out today, we'll have to get it all out then. And it's still going to be a long meeting. So, I mean, you know, I've kind of bought into this idea of a committee. So, I mean, maybe we refer it to a committee, but who's next, Miss Lucille? Did you, Lucille? No, Todd had his name. Todd
would be too, though. It would be Frank and then Todd. I thought you had your hand raised.
So as I listen to, this is Frank Emery, City of Charlotte. As I hear the conversation, we seem to be talking about how long it will take versus today. And I don't think that's the right question. The question in my mind is, do we have the right people looking at the language, pressure testing it to ensure that it does for us what it's supposed to do? And, you know, well, I guess I'm speaking for myself, but, you know, by signing up for this committee, I expose the assets of my family. That matters to me. Now, so when people say, well, I think the indemnification says this and the other, I'm saying, no, that's not good enough for me. I need somebody who works for us to say, I stand behind this, and that their insurance is on that opinion, so if it isn't right, I get to go, if their opinion isn't correct, I get to go after them, to be really clear. The lawyer in me is telling you that's how that works. Okay, so to me, that's what I'm looking for. And so when I hear this conversation, I feel, well, point one. Point two is I don't know that the time we're concerned about or describing as wasted. I think what we're really seeing is two things. One, the people around this table are extraordinarily interested in this, and they've done their homework, which is fantastic, and people have read it. I think the thing that's missing is the ability then to consider the comments, you know, in a regularized fashion, so that people can then understand the impact of what everybody is saying. We're doing this. I don't mean this in a mean way, but kind of on the fly. And this, in my mind, is way too important for that. So I like the notion of we raise it, we get some people. Step two is we have some folks focus on it, ask the professional questions that need to be asked, and then bring that report back to us so that we can A, understand it, and B, pressure test that part. So that's my view of that. So I'm not making a motion. I'm speaking to the one that's on the table. Thank you.
Todd is next.
Todd.
Yes, Mr. Chair, I sent an email on Monday regarding indemnifications and recusals, and I had a number of questions between the Code of Ethics and the operating procedures that seem to contradict to a degree. You and your team provided a response email today which clarified a number of those questions. And I think out of that email, there were going to be a few revisions to the documents being made. In my opinion, that would be a productive approach toward resolving some of these questions. Allow all individuals on this board to submit their questions, and some of the questions really need council review. Allow that council to review, send response, and then the question may disappear. If there are additional questions, clearly we can bring it up to the broader board. The second part of that is, if documents are being amended based on some of the questions raised, it would be appropriate to document the revisions and the reason for the revisions. And look, I believe in getting things done quickly, but I think one of the challenges we have here now, it's my understanding that the documents we're looking at are actually dated. And so we should actually get the most recent versions of documents for discussion so that we can have the most productive discussion.
Just real quickly, we'll go over here. All I was saying is, instead of cutting off conversation, we get the issues out on the table in front of everybody. Because what staff is doing is trying to interpret everybody's stuff. I've been sitting with Elizabeth, and this has been grueling. Because all of y'all are asking the same question in the same way, but a different way. And that's why I was hoping we'd have just punting on it, is already a pre-gone conclusion. We're not going to have 21 votes. I didn't know if we had 14 votes on the other document, so I didn't want to call it on that. That's why I didn't pass it out to now. I wanted to see if we had 14, we should have moved that on. I didn't want to stop that conversation. What I'd like to see is us stop debating about debate and actually talk about the documents a little bit, so that if we do a committee, they have some thoughts about what we all feel. But we can do that. Part of what Mr. Longo said is if we do a committee, send them everything everybody's ever said, and all I can tell you is if we could have a little conversation so that when you do send your notes, you take some stuff off the table, that would be helpful to staff. So that's what I'm telling you. I mean, poor Elizabeth and Brad, y'all, they have chased every change of a letter that y'all put in a note. And that's not fair to them. I was trying to have conversation there. That's what I wanted, just some,
So
and still punt.
fully appreciate, the efforts have been extraordinary. And we really are, I think, all very genuinely appreciative. But we haven't, I get this forum, but we just need to be able to collect everybody's thoughts. And so whether it's the officers or whether if you'd like to have others, it's
No, we if somebody wanted to make a substitute motion for what I sent, somebody could, but let's keep going. Who else had their hand up? Peter.
And then Wyatt.
Peter Pappas, City of Charlotte. So let me just ask Mr. Emery a question. Are you suggesting that we retain outside counsel now on these bylaw issues and code of ethics issues?
The answer is yes. I don't know that we can, however, because we're at our level of organization, but that would be the ideal, is to have someone working for us to look at this and give us the answers. I mean, that's no denigration of the city folks at all, but it's just that everybody sits in the seat they sit in.
They agree, actually. They actually agree. They can actually help us with the formative stuff, like this, what we'll talk later. And just so you know, I hadn't talked in my report, but I asked Mr. Emery to actually help us figure out the council thing. Because there's no money now. We need help to get to the next step. We need to now get a MOU with somebody so we can actually use their own call contracts to get somebody to help us. And then, so, I mean, there's a process. Nobody doesn't want, I want to get general counsel. But, I mean, we don't have a process to do it until we get some things voted.
Well, to that point, maybe we ought to let our treasurer come back with something that gets us some temporary funding to do that and take Mr. Emery's suggestion, because I think he makes a really good suggestion about this indemnification. Just from my perspective, it's a big issue, and I think we'd all be better served by taking the time to do that. But I hear what you're saying. We got to have some way to pay that individual. So, I think kind of the point of all this is, we got some really capable people here. Let's utilize them in different committees to go ahead and strategically move this along. And that certainly doesn't stop tonight getting other comments on the table. But I think you've got to have some way to move it along. And I think the suggestion about a timeline is a good one. It seems to me we've got 3 retreats coming up that once we get past that, we ought to be able to vote on all these documents. I mean, that gives us 3 other opportunities to work on some of this, and then, our target ought to be to approve it after that. So that's my suggestion, Mr. Chairman.
The retreats are not for this, though. The retreats is to get us level set on planning all of it's to get us, we kind of got reasons for calling them. And if we do this, that's why I came back and said, a committee may make sense. And by the way, if we don't do it until the last retreat, we don't have committees. We still kind of function like this until then. Just remember that.
Well, with all due respect, though,
yes, sir.
The point is,
yes, sir.
We got to address what Mr. Emery said. So we can address it right now, but that's a big deal.
I'll cut to the chase on insurance. We're going to get insurance, and I'm going to tell you about that. We already have insurance, actually. So that's Wyatt. Yes, sir.
And I realize we're kind of Wyatt Dixon, City of Charlotte. I realize we're kind of all over the place here. So on the insurance piece, I think that's great. I would say relative to the committee piece and the variations of this, just like trading around any type of legal document where you have a starting point and you have red lines against that, which people review and things like that, is it the chair's intent that basically when these committees would work together, we have a starting point, this document's in front of us, whatever is sent back out to the larger group to review and discuss is marked up against what we have now so that we're able to track from one to the next, all the way through to fruition, I guess is the question.
We actually do have a red line document. We didn't do it right here, but we had it, so. See, that's what that is. That's what that is. It is red line, so just so you know.
Mr. Chair.
Yeah, and then we need to settle down, y'all, and figure out something, please, so we can.
Julie's next.
Okay, well, the CEO, and then.
So as a comment to Mr. Dixon, but also probably to the general comments being made this evening, and again, as your interim CEO, I also do feel an obligation to talk about staff and how we could accommodate this. Certainly, if it is the intention of this body to deliberate further on this, we can distribute this as the baseline. We would then offer a request to receive all comments that can then be tracked and redistributed and documented from whom and each comment in that to the entire body for further deliberation. I think that is what you're referring to, Mr. Dixon, and agreed, we can certainly do that with time and with a process that we understand to do that to assist this board.
And I would just, sorry, I just finished up. I would just add that I think the transparency that creates, I think, is a good thing for us to go through. So it fully walks through. There was a lot of behind the scenes work that went into getting what we started here with. And now that it's become, a public document, I think it's a great following step. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, to go back to Trustee Collins' point, if we move forward with what our
All right, folks. We'll come back to this discussion out of Charlotte in just a little bit. And as we mentioned before, we've got a lot of feeds coming from around the nation showing anti-ICE protests. The latest 3-box, we had the New Orleans one for you, and a new one that just popped up on our radar out of Boston. So we'll be back in 2 minutes on the other side, either rejoining with the MPTA meeting, that transportation meeting out of Charlotte, or if we're getting some good audio still out of Boston, looks like they've got some speakers going, we'll try to join with them. So stick with us here on Live Impact. Welcome back to Live Impact News. We are going to turn over to one of our newer feeds right now into our newsroom. This comes to us out of Boston, Massachusetts, one of the cities across the nation. We're seeing anti-ICE protests cropping up in the wake of what happened this morning in Minneapolis, Minnesota, the fatal shooting of a woman during an immigration-related operation. We heard within the last, I'd say, 2 hours or so at this point, the latest update from Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem saying that the agent who shot this woman said that he was fearing for his life, believing that she was intending to run him over with her vehicle. We have heard kind of challenges, if you will, to that narrative, including from Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey, who says that he saw video of the encounter itself and that the video seems to dispute that narrative that the woman was trying to run the agent over. Let's listen into the dialogue right now underway in Boston.
Do that by electing champions of the cause who can make it impossible for ICE to actually operate. But right now, elected officials need to be able to hear us when we say that they must stop the illegitimate federal government, or we will find somebody else who will do it. This cannot go on any longer. Solidarity forever, and I'm now going to pass it off to my fellow Boston DSA member, Destiny.
No justice! No peace! No justice! No peace! No justice! No peace! No justice! No peace! Oh God, I'm so nervous. Hold on, I'm shaking. Hi everybody, my name is Destiny. I'm a fellow DSA organizer and Luce volunteer. If you don't know what those things are, DSA is...
Are you rolling for them? Yep. Oh, okay. I was going to...
and
unless they tell you if you're clear, we can do like a stand-up like a bridge.
Okay. They do incredible work.
Okay.
I'm so proud
I
of
just
them.
wanted them to like chant and stuff, but so we can have them in
And
the
I'm an educator, I'm your neighbor, and I'm fucking pissed.
new
I
higher
found
ground.
out on my walk home from school today of the absolutely disgusting
We're gonna say something like,
atrocious murder of our comrade.
The fatal shooting has sparked protests from Minneapolis to Boston and across the country with rally-goers vowing to continue their activism. No, with rally-goers vowing to double down on their activism or something like that.
Here tonight, right now. And so let's all reflect on what's brought us here today and the next
I'm just
actions
waiting
that
for
we
them
must
to
take
do like a chant or something.
together to fight back against the bigots, xenophobes, and oppressors.
And if they do that, you can do like maybe 1 or 2 seconds and then come to me. Yeah.
As a Mexican-American woman, the issue of racism and systemic oppression has been a personal issue for a long time. Viva! Viva!
Protests from Minneapolis to Boston and across the country with rally-goers vowing
car, she stopped to give a homeless
double
man
down
some
on their
food.
activism.
He took the food, threw it at us, and screamed wetback. When the tragic murder of Trayvon Martin shook the nation, my mother threw all of my brother's black hoodies. When I finally
Fatal shooting now sparking protests from Minneapolis to Boston and across the country with rally-goers vowing to double down on their community activism.
She told us of how she lived in fear for her family, my family, and the devastation that ICE caused her. My heart aches every day for my family and for my neighbors because of the fear and vitriol that ICE has caused for decades. It didn't start today. It did not start this morning. It's been going on for decades. And I refuse to bow down and pretend like it hasn't. Yet my fear has turned to anger. And who are we to fear our government? Who are we to fear the civil servants that we have elected? They need to fear us because together we are stronger. Together we are more powerful than this administration and their despicable plans. And each and every
become incredibly personal to me. Again, and again, and again, and again, countless injustices. And what does Christy no one wants me to do tomorrow? She wants me to wake up, she wants me to go to school, she wants me to look at my students in the eye and pretend like everything is okay? Because it's not. She wants us, the Trump administration wants us to pretend that we're safe in our neighborhoods because we know the truth, we know that we're not. And I refuse to do nothing. And it's not enough to sign another petition, to email my senator again. That's right. That's time for strategic, organized, collective action.
Folks, Vanessa Rufus here in the Live Impact News studio. We just wanted to remind folks, this is a raw, unedited feed coming to us from, as you can see, a protest in Boston, Massachusetts. Folks getting very heated. There is the possibility of vulgar language, so viewer discretion advised here. We will do our best, though, if we start to see things get more heated, if it becomes inappropriate in that sense, as far as the language is concerned or anything like that, we will try to pivot away. But just wanted to give folks another heads up here.
Because they know they suck. And they know that we are mobilizing against them to bear witness to their crimes, and they will back down. And shoulder to shoulder, we have members here from PSL and Boston VSA. Make some noise. And there is a shift in the political climate in this moment. The culture wars of the past are becoming irrelevant in the face of the grotesque actions of our government officials. That's right. It's time not to fight fire with fire, but to fight fire with water. And to fight racism with solidarity. And together we can get these corporate bootlickers, these billionaires, out of office. And there's union members here. Shout out to your union. And if you're not, it's time to join. And if you don't have a union, it's time to start one. The greatest threat to the people in power is our threat to stop working, to withhold our labor. That's right. It's time to knock on doors. It's time to blast the group chat. It is time to beg our friends, our neighbors, our family to join us in this fight. When we organize, when we participate in ICE Watch, when we put pressure on our legislators, when we reach out our hands to those affected, when we build our mutual aid networks, and when we refuse to bow down, we win together. That's right. And together we keep us safe. We keep us safe. We keep us safe. We keep us safe.
And this fatal shooting is now sparking protests from Minneapolis to Boston with activists here. Rally goers there.
And Vanessa Rufus here again. You just saw one of the reporters there on scene with this crew that's providing the live feed. You might see the reporter pop in now again. Either it looked like he was rehearsing for his report, or he might even conduct a live report soon for his station. Just wanted to let you know what you were seeing and why the gentleman popped up on screen for you.
This requires us to be more, to be better. That's right. We need to work together to make lasting change that will matter. And I refuse to look at my students, my neighbors, my family without fighting back in a big way. And I hope you'll join me and my fellow organizers. Thank you. Give it up for Donald Trump, let's be clear.
3, 2, 1. This fatal shooting has sparked. This fatal shooting has sparked protests from Minneapolis to Boston, with rally goers here vowing to continue their community activism.
Donald Trump, let's be clear. Donald Trump, let's be clear. Immigrants are welcome here. that right now we need to be getting organized. We need to be organizing with our co-workers. We need to be organizing in our neighborhoods, in our communities. Shout out to Democratic Socialists of America. Socialism liberation. And the org of our very next speaker, I want you to give a very warm welcome to Sada from the Boston South Asian Coalition. The people united will never be defeated.
All right, folks, and we will take a quick break here on Live Impact, back with 2 minutes to go in this break, either hearing from more of these protests. We also got the Charlotte transportation meeting that's underway, and we also have some more reaction to bring you from leaders in Minnesota as well, as Live Impact continues in just a bit. All right, welcome back here to Live Impact News. We've been monitoring various live feeds for you tonight, seeing a lot of anti-ICE protests cropping up tonight in light of that deadly shooting from this morning of a woman during an immigration enforcement operation in Minneapolis, Minnesota. We've got some folks who are in the crowd there speaking. Actually, it looks like that's the Boston feed. So let's go ahead and go there instead and listen to this man who said that he's showing up for this protest, and let's hear his backstory on why.
We see the ICE raids all across here in Boston. In Medford, we were outside of a hotel protesting against the fact that ICE agents were being housed there. We're seeing all across the nation this intensification of violence on our immigrant communities, and it's our job, and that's why you see the crowd out here, it's our job to stand against this and say, no, we don't stand for this. We welcome our immigrant community. In fact, that we need our immigrant community, right? I mean, think about the history of this country. We're built on immigrants. And so it's imperative that we protest against this, because these are attacks on people just like us.
And some of the messages that I've been listening to here tonight, a lot is almost, I mean, I don't know if defiance is the right word, but almost saying we're going to come out whether ICE wants us or not. We're going to be out here as a community and doing community activism. Tell me, you know, I don't know if you can explain that message here to us and why that's important.
Yeah, I mean, I think that especially like the struggle against ICE agents and against ICE and the attacks on our immigrant communities has laid bare like the Trump administration, their rhetoric, right? They try to scapegoat every community, whether it's immigrants one day or the black community the next day. Whoever it is, these are all scapegoats for the problems that they create, the problems that these billionaire politicians create. The fact that, you know, everyday people don't have access to health care. Everyday people can't buy groceries in the store because it's too expensive. The fact that everyday people can't have good housing at a good price. These are the issues that people are grappling with, and we don't believe this false narrative that they're trying to paint, that we should be blaming it on all these different communities. We lay our blame at the hands of one group of people, and that's the people who make profit off of our backs, the billionaire class.
Why is it so important to speak up right now, as opposed to, you know, what happens if we don't?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a great question. It's almost the question anytime something like this happens. Why do we speak up? Why and why now? And it's because we can't have this happen again. It's because we won't let any single injustice ever stop us from showing out and showing, like, protest against it, right? And the fact that all these issues, all these struggles, everything that I just talked about, all these are interconnected. It's all tied, you know, the issue of immigration, to the issue of these attacks on the black community, to the issue of war, and there's no reason we should be going to war with Venezuela. All of these things are tied together, and so we have to make sure that we connect them together and say, like, none of these are things that should be happening. In fact, we should just be funding the things that people need in this country instead of aggressing our communities and violence on the international stage with things like war. Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you.
All unite for immigrant rights!
All right, and it looks like that interview has wrapped up. You're looking at our 3-box right now at protesters in Boston, Massachusetts. This protest coming in the wake of that deadly shooting in Minneapolis, Minnesota, of a woman at the hands of ICE during an immigration operation. We heard earlier tonight DHS Secretary Kristi Noem saying that the agent fired believing that his life was in jeopardy, and also believing that the woman was intending to run him over with a vehicle. We've heard folks challenging that narrative, folks who say they have seen the video, including Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey, who says the video seems to dispute that narrative, and we're seeing many of these folks calling for a thorough investigation into what happened this morning. Also in our 3-box, an anti-ICE protest underway in New Orleans. We've been seeing many of these around the nation tonight, including in New York City, Miami, as well as in Minneapolis. And in the bottom left corner, the Charlotte Transportation meeting, this newly formed board making decisions and talking about policy related to Charlotte transit and transportation. I think we can go ahead and maybe listen to the Charlotte Transportation meeting in full, since it looks like this is our only feed right now where we're seeing some constant speakers. So let's go ahead and listen in right now.
Able to participate in some way as board members?
Should be able to vote. So we will make all efforts to set up the proper technology to allow participation. At a minimum, they will be live streamed. These will be public meetings. These are publicly noticed meetings, and they will be live streamed. We will work with our technology team to accommodate participation as well.
I'll do that right after.
Okay, even if you designate a phone number to text into, whatever, that we could have, be asked to give comments.
Yes, we'll figure
Thank
that out. Jocelyn? And after we do this, we've had a request to take 5 minutes, just real quick. So, Jocelyn?
I'll refrain from my comment. It's fine.
All right, motion on the floor. We're going to do roll call again because these are the top 4 things for us. Yes, Clayton.
Just real quick, and I'm assuming they will be, so I will be driving for 6.5 hours that day, on February 5th. So I'm going to try to listen in, but will we be able to watch it like any city thing after the fact? Not just live stream?
Yes.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Roll call. Yeah, Mr. Harlow. Justice.
I'm hearing February 5th. I'm hearing February 6th. I just want to be sure for this first workshop. It's the 5th. All right.
1, 2, 3,
Got
4,
it.
5.
Thank you.
All right. Roll call.
On the calendar with February 11th added, Charles Gomez.
Yes.
Mike Bryan.
Yes.
Ned Curran.
Yes.
Todd Collins.
Yes.
Mike Dixon,
Yes.
Julie Heisel,
Yes.
Frank Emery,
Yes.
All right, and folks, it looks like they're in the middle of a roll call right now at that transportation meeting in Charlotte. So we're pivoting back to this protest. Primarily audio you'll hear now from Boston, Massachusetts. Looks like we have someone now at the microphone. We'll listen in.
Like Haitians. But do we believe that? No! I said, do we believe that? No! The killing of Renee Nicole Good lays bare. It lays bare this system. That's right. A system that would rather put money into the killing machine of ICE than fund our communities. A system that would rather go to war with Venezuela than provide housing for people here. It's a system. It's a system that constantly attacks the everyday people living in this country, as opposed to pointing out the real enemy, that are the billionaire class. That's right. Because it's in their interests. This violence, whether it's war or whether it happens right here on our own streets, the reason for it is all the same. It's all because there's a tiny clique of people. There's only 900 billionaires in this country. It's a tiny clique of people who benefit from this violence. And they would rather blame all the issues that they create. All the issues that they create on us. Do we believe that? No! Do we stand for that? No! Because we have to understand that even the root cause of immigration to this country is largely because of the U.S. destabilizing and going to war with other countries. They create the conditions for people to have to leave their home countries. Do we think that's an easy decision? No! An easy decision for everyday people to make, to leave the country that you come from, to come here? No. And then they demonize you the moment you hit America. And all that lays bare the cruel logic of this system. This is a system riddled with things that don't make sense. That's right. There's no reason Renee Nicole Good, someone who's trying to do good in her community, should be killed. That's right. There's no reason why someone like Saeed Faisal, who was murdered by Cambridge police in 2023, should be killed for having a mental health crisis. And there's no reason that we have such a history of killings of unarmed black men in this country. There's no reason for it. So whether we think of 2020 with George Floyd, whether we think of 2023 with Saeed Faisal, whether we think of 2026 with Renee Nicole Good, whether we think of any of the instances of attacks on communities, on our communities, the solution remains the same. We need to build a system that prioritizes people's lives over profit. We need to build a system that would rather fund the things that we need rather than a death machine. And we only can build a system like that with people like you in the street. We can only build.
Sorry about that, folks. We just lost that feed out of Boston. We're pivoting now to New Orleans. This anti-ICE protest still underway.
Annabelle Jones. ANNABELLEJONES.
Wait till because we don't want to be at a curve. I'm gonna just wait.
Just wanted to let folks know you might hear some vulgar language, and this is raw and unedited. We're going to try our best to make sure that we're not hearing a whole bunch of expletives, but it is possible in a situation like this, and we just want to say viewer discretion advised once again.
I don't know how y'all do it. This is hard.
Oh, yeah. All right, we stopping now.
No justice.
Okay.
No peace.
So just tell me, honestly, why are you out here today?
I'm angry. I'm angry about what happened to Renee Nicole Good today. I'm angry about what ICE is doing to my country. I'm angry about what they're doing on my streets, in my community.
And honestly, you say you're angry. I mean, what message do you think do this send to people? You're 100 miles away from where the incident happened in Minneapolis. What message do you think this sends?
I think that this means we're here. We're together. Everybody is standing up against what is wrong, and we know that we deserve to protect each other, and that's what we have to do, because the government is not protecting us. ICE is not here to protect us. They're here to hurt us, and we have to protect each other.
And honestly, what ICE did today, a lot of people, you say you're angry by that. What do you think, what message do you think that sends, what ICE did?
I think it proves what I'm saying, that they don't care about us. They don't want to help us. They're here to hurt people. They are terrorists in this country.
Stand up, fight back.
I mean, and honestly, you're protesting right now. I mean, what do you think it's going to take to really get change?
I think it's going to take a lot more of us. I think it's going to take everybody getting in the streets together, standing up for what we believe in, what's right, which is protecting each other. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Take care.
All right.
Let's take a break. All right, folks, and looks like we just lost that shot, so we're going to go ahead and use this as a great time to take a break. We'll be back in 2 minutes with much more, continuing to follow a lot of live feeds, and we also have more reaction to share out of Minneapolis, Minnesota tonight. We'll be right back. All right, folks, thanks so much for sticking with us here on Live Impact News. I'm Vanessa Rufus. We are going to pivot back to Charlotte, North Carolina. Here at home, we've got the new Metropolitan Public Transportation Authority, this newly formed board that is set to discuss the future of Charlotte's transit and roadways and transportation-related topics. They are having a dialogue after taking a quick recess, so let's go ahead and listen back in.
Get a point. First of all, I think that's a good idea. Secondly,
Okay.
since I had the floor, I thought I'd say, but secondly, could we maybe go get a clarification on this thing about funding?
We're
Because
going to talk about it.
are we going to go to that
Yes,
next?
sir.
Okay, thank you.
That's part of
Thank
my
you.
report.
Thank you.
All right, so we don't have to vote on not hearing a presentation. If everybody's nodding their head, that we can wait.
Yes, sir.
All right, next up is, sorry about that, next time. All right, Mr. CEO.
Yes, members of the board, I will keep this very brief. For my executive report this evening, I have 4 items to make you aware of or remind you of. The first is the FTA administrator, Mr. Mark Molinaro, will be visiting Charlotte on January 16th. That is next week. He will be engaging with staff, and there are several elements to his visit. One is a ride on the Blue Line, and a second is a roundtable with staff, some members of the business community, as well as Administrator Molinaro. If you'd like additional information on that, we would be happy to send that out. Please just let myself or Ms. Prezzuti know, and we can provide you additional details. The second item is, you may or may not be aware, myself as the interim CEO of CATS, as well as other local officials and elected officials in the Charlotte area, have been invited to testify before the North Carolina General Assembly House Oversight Committee in a special hearing. That committee meeting was previously scheduled for January 22nd. It has been rescheduled to January 29th, the morning of January 29th in Raleigh. Again, if you'd like additional details on that, please reach out directly to myself or Ms. Prezzuti, and we're happy to provide you that information. Third item is, there have been inquiries regarding emails for this body specific to the MPTA. We are working on that as we set up the technology infrastructure for separate from the City of Charlotte and specific to the MPTA. We are working with our technology group, and I am told that that will take approximately
Okay, bear with us, folks. It looks like we've got some issues with this feed. Just froze up on us. It has been giving us some issues throughout the evening, so we're going to see if we can get things up and running and back for you here on Live Impact. Right, just as we said that, it's back. So let's go back to the Charlotte MPTA meeting.
in approximately 2 months. The last thing is just an information item. The CATS has been working through what we call a FAIR study. That FAIR study has been an ongoing effort for about the last 12 months. We have presented the results and recommendations of that FAIR study to the MTC. The FAIR study is not, don't think about it in terms of what we charge for fares. It's how we collect fares. It's how we structure tickets, one ride, all day pass. You know, it's how we collect fares. Some elements are in what we charge, but the focus on it has been improving, creating a simpler fare structure and improving technology around how we collect fares. A good example of that is tap to pay technology. Many of you may have used transit in other cities where you don't buy a ticket, you tap to pay. Again, those are all common technologies, and that is what the FAIR study has been looking at over the last year. We have made recommendations to the MTC to implement those recommendations. There is a legal requirement for public engagement, and we will be conducting public engagement beginning later this month. To gather input from the public and to understand their thoughts and feelings about the different recommendations in the FAIR study. As we gather that information, clearly we will be able to bring that back to this board. And again, at the chair and the board's desire, we are happy to provide background information on the study and the recommendations to this board. As I said, it was previously provided to the MTC. That is the conclusion of my report.
Any questions of Brent before we move on? Yes, Alicia, and, or Kelly, Kristen. Yeah, we'll just go first. Yeah, Alicia. Yes.
Alicia Stedman, Mecklenburg County. Can we receive additional information about the engagement strategy for that public outreach?
Yes.
Thank you.
That was my question as well, and if there are ways that we can share with folks on how to engage.
Yes, we will do that with the entire body as we're preparing for it.
Mr. Bryant.
Thank you for your report, Ms. Cagle. It's my understanding that our agenda packets are not posted on the MPTA website. Is that possible moving forward to have those posted for transparency purposes?
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions? If not, we'll move on to the chair report, and then we can go home. All right, so first thing I want to do is thank you for letting me guide you through all of that a while ago. That was interesting. I do want to let you know that while we haven't met a lot, and we will get that cadence right going forward, the officers, hopefully we'll have an executive committee sometime in the near future. But one of the things we kind of all talked about and I wanted to share is, of course, as treasurer, the treasurer's taking the lead on making sure that we are fiscally sound. And in future meetings, maybe part of what we do is kind of hear where we are on bank accounts, financial policies, and all those things that allow us to start spending money sometime in the future. But I wanted you guys to know he's taking the lead on that. I met with the vice chair not too long ago, and one of the things I asked of him, and we said it earlier, was to take the lead to figure out where we need to go in this general council conversation, because it is convoluted a little bit until we get money and we have procurement rules. So he's going to take the lead on that and work with staff to figure that out. And then I asked Madam Secretary Christie to actually focus in on what will be our first big move in a transfer. And that would be the HR part of this, the staff. She has a extreme amount of background in governance and how that stuff works. So she's going to take the lead on working with staff on that. And I just wanted to let you know what we're doing as officers to make sure that we're moving this forward. Other thing I want to let you know is that I've had at least 1 or 2 meetings with the city manager and some conversations about this transfer. And I want to make sure we all use that language. This is a
58 minutes, 40
Got your steps in?
She got her steps in. They are from CATS. They have been extremely helpful. Yeah, please. And I wanted to thank him publicly. So one of the things that you have in front of you is actually what they're doing to try to help us get going. You got a copy of the interlocal agreement committee report that they gave to Transportation and Budget, I believe. So they gave it to 2 committees last week. And I'm going to read exactly what's going on with that so you know. So I'm going to just read this if that's okay for the record. On Monday, City Council will be presented with an action item to adopt a resolution which will allow the city manager to negotiate and execute an interlocal agreement with MPTA. City Council's approval on Monday will not be the final interlocal agreement. In fact, there will be a series of them, and potentially one with the county too, a few with the county, but rather the opportunity to negotiate and execute an agreement. The City of Charlotte has committed to providing an initial draft of the interlocal agreement to us the week of January the 12th, pending the City Council approval. Once we receive the draft, we will make sure we circulate to the full MPTA board the draft of the interlocal agreement. I got off. Once we circulate to the trustees and establish a timeline for the board member review and comment. Ultimately, my goal will be to have this interlocal agreement completed by our next MPTA board meeting in early February. This interlocal agreement will be the first of many agreements between MPTA and the city. The purpose of this initial interlocal agreement will be for the City of Charlotte to support MPTA in accomplishing specific tasks that are required by the PAVE Act to be completed by July 1, 2026. Some of those tasks include establishing board governance policies, developing financial and operation policies, creating human resource and information technology plans, and creating an asset acquisition timeline and plan. The board appropriation action on Monday will be, along with the resolution to negotiate and execute the interlocal agreement, the city of Charlotte will also consider the action to appropriate $4.3 million to support the eligible administrative startup costs through July 1st, 2026. This funding will be used for legal services, accounting and auditing, meeting administrative expenses, required studies and regulatory fees, director and officers, public officials insurance, to the question earlier, consultants and advisory services, and other reasonable and necessary administrative expenses. This $4.3 million is going to stay in the city of Charlotte and will not transfer to the MPA until we have a bank account. The city staff, at the direction of the MPTA, will perform administrative work to enter into contracts, pay invoices, etc., since the MPA does not currently have the appropriate organizational infrastructure to complete all the required tasks in compliance with state law. And that is to allow the MPA trustees to focus on policy. This will allow the trustees to focus on policy development rather than administrative functions. It will also mean MPTA will not need to appoint a financial officer yet, which carries legal liability and requires a surety bonds insurance. The financial officer is required by state law to enter into contracts, so the city managing this fund on behalf means that the city's CFO satisfies state law. Okay, one more paragraph, y'all. The $4.3 million is existing fund balance from existing Article 43 sales tax revenue, which is the hazard sales tax?
Correct.
Okay. Which must be used for expenses related to public transit systems as permitted by the state of North Carolina. As a reminder, the 1% local sales and use tax approved by the voters on November the 4th is not yet levied and therefore is not being used for expenses. Any unused funds will be returned to CAT's fund balance, so we will use it all. I'm joking. The utilization of funds will not be needed to repay by the MPA since the funding is from CAT's and will ultimately transfer to the MPA at some point in the future. And in talking to at least one of you guys, we felt like maybe we should do something to say that we support what the city council is doing to send a message. So I'm going to recognize Mr. Lindsay.
Mr. Chair, T. Anthony Lindsay from Huntersville. I'd like to make a motion that the MPTA board endorse pursuing a collaborative agreement with the city of Charlotte to provide administrative startup support for the MPTA and to authorize the MPTA's officers to engage in discussions with the city about the terms of a proposed agreement for further review and approval by the Board of Trustees no later than our next regular MPTA board meeting.
Which is,
Second.
Mr. Chairman. It's been moved by, moved by Anthony and seconded by Peter, is what I heard. Peter from the city. Any discussion on that other than just a very big thank you to the city for getting us going?
Call the question.
All in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
No opposed. If you oppose, you have to leave. All right, everybody, thank you. So what's next?
Okay, folks, as they move on to this next item agenda, we're going to take a quick break here on Live Impact News. Back in 2 minutes with more updates from this meeting and other headlines we are seeing from around the nation tonight. We'll see you in a couple minutes. All right, folks, welcome back to Live Impact News. We are going to turn now to another national headline. Of course, the reaction following the operation in Venezuela from over the weekend, one which saw deposed leader Maduro and his wife brought to the United States and captured. We've got Democrats today speaking on this instance, and we have a few of them that we're going to hear from right now.
I'm so proud to be joined and stand here with my fellow veterans. I'll lay out a pretty simple standard that I think we all should ask, but whether you send Americans to fight or occupy a foreign land. Can you look young people in the eye and say they should risk their life and maybe die for it? Can you look parents and grandparents in the eye and say that their children or grandchildren should risk their lives and maybe die for it? I think if I ask my constituents and the folks on this stage ask theirs, whether their kids and grandkids or maybe them should go risk their lives to bleed and die to occupy Venezuela for their oil, I bet you they say no. And the interesting thing to me is this administration has not even asked. The Republicans we serve with in Congress don't even want to ask their constituents that. I'll ask them some questions. If, God forbid, Americans come back in flag-draped caskets, are you going to stand there and tell their parents and their widows and their children it was worth it? There are already 7 Americans that we know of who were wounded in what happened over the weekend, and thank God they survived. And as I understand it, will recover. These are not idle or hypothetical risks, and so many on this stage understand that or have friends who may not have come home. That's the standard. So the Congress, Democrats and Republicans, should grow a spine, look at the Constitution in Article 1 that rests those war powers with us and the American people, not a president, not any president. That's my simple message. Our Republican colleagues should do the same and join us. Thank you. And I should introduce, from the Commonwealth of Virginia, Representative Midman.
Thank you so much. So thank you to my colleagues Seth Moulton and Pat Ryan for gathering us here today, and to all of the Democratic veterans that have put on this uniform, this country's cloth. Today I stand before you, a 25-year Army veteran and a member of the U.S. Armed Services, House Armed Services Committee, representing tens of thousands of active duty service members and veterans in the 7th Congressional District of Virginia. And here's what I know to be true. The American people don't want this war in Venezuela. And let there be no mistake, the actions that took place on the 3rd day of this year were an act of war. It was regime change, it was dozens of aircraft bombing, and that American blood and treasure has already been expended. The real question going forward is how much. The president did not come to the American people to make his case about why the operations in Venezuela, which were conducted really magnificently, and I commend the U.S. military and armed forces for that, but he didn't come to the American people, nor did he go to Congress to seek authorization for the military force. And he should have. Regardless of the president's actions, I believe the decisions to take this country into war demand transparency and the consent of the American people. Through the voices of the elected representatives of the American people, the people that are standing before you today. I served in Iraq. My twin brother was wounded in Iraq. We know firsthand that wars are easy to start and extraordinarily hard to finish. Like Bush, Donald Trump lied to the American people. Trump said this was about drugs, but obviously we know this is about oil. And apparently the cost of protection is around 30 to 50 million barrels of oil, because the regime still remains in place. He said he'd be the president of peace, and now he's dropping bombs all over the place, in Venezuela and many other places. He said he wasn't pursuing regime change, but he got rid of Maduro, and now apparently Marco Rubio is running Venezuela, which, based on the hearing the briefing we just received, sounds pretty darn questionable. Lies like these get us into wars like Iraq and put our soldiers at risk. Once lives are put in harm's way, there's no simple exit and no easy way of undoing the consequences. Of the 7 wounded, at least one may have permanent injuries, and he'll have to live that. He and his family will have to live that for the rest of their lives. The American people don't want war in Venezuela, and these wars started because people like Donald Trump and his cabinet lied to us. We need to avoid Iraq 2.0. Believe your eyes and not the lies. And with that, I have the distinct privilege of introducing Representative Goodlander.
I want to thank Congressman Moulton and Congressman Ryan for bringing us together. This is some of my favorite people in Congress, and I feel at home with this group because I think three things really bring us here today. First and foremost, we had the honor of seeing firsthand in uniform how extraordinary our United States military is and how precious our service members are. There is no greater love than a love that leads a person to put their life on the line for their country, and that's what our service members do every single day. Their trust is a precious resource, and the costs of war are costs that we should be talking about all day, every day, because they are the costs in lives and the costs in taxpayer dollars at a moment when people across our country, across my home state, are having to make some of the most painful choices that you could ever imagine a person making, because we are in the midst of a full-blown cost crisis. Having to choose between healthcare and housing, having to choose between gas and groceries. These are painful choices that no American should have to make. At the end of the day, we all took an oath to this Constitution, and I carry it with me everywhere I go because it's very useful on this job, in ways big and small. We will honor our oath by being relentless in pursuing answers to basic questions. Questions like, what comes next in Venezuela? How much is this going to cost in lives and in dollars? And we will be relentless in upholding our oath to this great Constitution, because this is a fragile experiment that we're undertaking. And there's nothing that tests this experiment more than a government that is not honest with its people and a government that is not smart about its resources. So I'm grateful to be with this group, and I turn it now over to my colleague from the great state of California, Congressman Tran.
Thank you so much, everyone, for being here. Thank Rep. Moulton and Ryan for convening this. Good afternoon. I'm Representative Derek Tran. I am an Army veteran, proudly serving the people of California's 45th District. I enlisted in the Army Reserve when I was 18 years old because I believed that it was my duty to give back to the country that gave me and my family everything. In 2003, when I was a senior in college, just months away from graduation, I was activated for Operation Noble Eagle and Enduring Freedom. I answered the call to action without hesitation. It was a great honor to don the uniform in defense of the country that I love so much. But it was a huge risk for me, for my brothers and sisters in uniform, and for our families. As veterans, we know firsthand the gravity of taking military action, sending Americans, men and women, into harm's way, require unimpeachable judgment and a steadfast commitment to the rule of law. By ignoring the Constitution and failing to inform Congress about the military actions in Venezuela, President Trump ignored that sacred duty to our troops. And what was this all for? Oil? American lives for oil. We've seen this before. Thousands of American soldiers were killed. Thousands more had their lives indelibly scarred, and trillions in taxpayer dollars was wasted when the U.S. invaded Iraq in 2003. Over 20 years later, we stand on the brink of yet another costly forever war that threatens the lives of our heroes in uniform. The American people deserves better than this. Families are looking to their leaders for relief with skyrocketing costs, and instead the president is draining their hard-earned tax dollars on a senseless war. I love this country, and I will always fight to defend it. We need to hold this administration accountable for its flagrant disregard for our Constitution, our service members, and the needs of the American people needs to be first and foremost. Enough is enough. The last thing our country needs is another forever war. Thank you. I'd like to turn it over to Rep. Cisneros.
And before we get to the next speaker here, we will take a quick break. We will return here in 2 minutes to hear the rest of this address from, as you heard, multiple Democratic veterans in Congress. We'll be back in 2. Welcome back, folks, to Live Impact News. Vanessa Rufus here. We continue to hear reaction nationwide following the operation in Venezuela, which saw deposed leader Nicolas Maduro and his wife captured and arrested, brought to the United States. And we are seeing now a lot of dialogue and question about what comes next and what would be the U.S. role, if any, in the wake of this change, if you will, of leadership. And we've been hearing from Democratic veterans, so veterans who are in Congress, who are also Democrats, speaking out tonight. And we're just about to hear from Representative Gil Cisneros, who is a rep from California. And we've been hearing kind of a similar thread in their dialogue, in that many of them say that they are opposed to the potential of any sort of American military involvement, and asking the Trump administration to consider the service members who may have to go over to Venezuela if that comes to it, and what that might mean. They're talking about the cost, both in dollars and in lives. With that, let's listen to Representative Cisneros.
Here today, I am Congressman Gil Cisneros from California, a Navy veteran, member of the House Armed Services Committee, as well as a former Undersecretary of Defense in the Department of Defense. I stand here today with my colleagues today to condemn the Trump administration's reckless and unconstitutional military action in Venezuela. The Constitution's clear. Only Congress, not the President, has the power to authorize war or military action. This pursuit of military intervention and regime change without any concrete plan or any way to how to address the instability it's now created within Venezuela is ludicrous. I know, because I served in our military, I worked at the Pentagon. This is not how America prioritizes its national security. Our service members are not pawns to be used by the president. Trump can get the media so that Trump can get the media off his back. We all know what this military action was about. It's about oil, and it always has been. Hell, even Trump gave up his, he talked to the heads of oil companies before he even talked to members of Congress. If it was, if it was, he would not have pardoned. If this was about drugs, like he said at the beginning, he would not have ever pardoned a convicted drug trafficker while capturing another. The American people deserve transparency, and Trump can boast he can boast that he's more transparent than any administration in history, but that's a flat-out lie. Trump, Hegseth, and Rubio are hiding from accountability, and they need to publicly justify what the justification was for their actions. I am deeply disturbed by the president, his actions that he is taking, this unilaterally making these highly contentious actions in another country, and I stand firmly against sending America into another endless war over oil. We cannot allow the Trump administration to unconstitutionally and recklessly keep playing with our national security. And with that, I'd like to turn it over to my colleague and friend, Representative Jimmy Panetta.
Thank you, Gil. Thank you, Representative Moulton, and thank you to my fellow veteran colleagues here. Jimmy Panetta, 19th Congressional District, Afghanistan war veteran. What we've seen with this intervention is that it brought great uncertainty, instability, and insecurity, all because Congress doesn't have enough tenacity to stand up to this president. As much as all of us up here appreciate the swift, amazing, and super job done by our special forces and intelligence community to remove a despot on January 3rd, we are gravely concerned about the uncertainty that lies ahead in the day after. This Vice President Rodriguez, we don't know what she's about. We don't know who supports her internally or externally. We don't know when she's going to have elections. We don't know if there was a deal for oil. In regards to oil, we don't know who's going to spend hundreds of billions of dollars to extract and revive that industry. We don't know whether or not the oil market, which is already filled with reserves, is going to accept more oil. We don't know how much this operation is going to cost. This uncertainty leads to great instability, not just in Venezuela, but in the region and with the United States of America. It brings insecurity. This president is all about spheres of influence. But what we've seen when we leave it up to China and Russia to have their own sphere, they dominate it. And that's when they threaten the United States of America. This is not about spheres of influence. We need to make it as a Congress about a sphere of governance. We, as a United States Congress, need to step up to our constitutional authorities. We need to ensure that this president abides by the Constitution. But this is what happens when you come to Congress, when you lie to Congress, and when you go around Congress. That's why Congress needs to show tenacity, a tenacity that it hasn't shown in the 119th, now more than ever. Not just to prevent these types of wars, but to make sure that we live up to our constitutional duties. It's my honor to represent a good friend of mine, fellow veteran, Jason Crow.
Thank you, Jimmy, and thank you to my fellow veterans. It's always an honor to stand with them in defense of our Constitution and our nation. I must say, as a 3-time combat veteran, I get pretty damn hot when a 5-time draft dodger bangs the war drums and talks about how easy it is to send boots on the ground in a foreign country. It's a pattern of abusing our military, disrespecting our military that continues to this day. You know, I learned years ago that when elites bang the war drums and talk tough in Washington, D.C., they're not talking about them or their kids going to do the thing. They're talking about kids like me, working class folks from around this country where I grew up that have to pick up a gun, jump into a helicopter or a tank and a ship and go do the hard work. And that's why I bristle when elites once more in this town are so cavalier about the use of American lives and American military power. Let's also be clear that our job as members of Congress is not to be cheerleaders. You've seen all sorts of our Republican colleagues talking about how amazing this operation was. I agree with them. There's no doubt that we have the ability to go almost anywhere in the world at the time and place of our choosing and kill or capture our adversaries or our enemies. That is true. But that's not our job as members of Congress. Our job is to make sure that's being done the right way and for the right reasons, and we're being stewards of the taxpayer dollar. Here are some things we know to be true. There's a lot we don't know, but here are some things we do know to be true. This is not about drugs. And this will not stop the scourge of fentanyl and meth that is killing our children and devastating our communities, because none of those drugs actually come from Venezuela. The drugs that are actually killing our kids are coming from other places. Here's another thing we know to be true. This is not about democracy and freedom for the people of Venezuela, because you've just heard over and over again that the Maduro regime remains intact. In fact, it's more oppressive sitting here today than it ever has been. What this is Donald Trump acting like an organized crime boss and using our military to shake down foreign leaders. Not only is that wrong and illegal, but it's going to undermine the safety and security of the American people. Because a smaller, weaker America with fewer friends means we have to go it alone. And when we go it alone, Americans have to suffer the consequences. That's what this is about. That's what we will continue to fight back against. That is what our duty and our oath compel. Thank you.
All right, well, I want to thank...
Before we get to the next speaker here, we'll take a break here on Live Impact. Back in 2 minutes with more on the other side. All right, welcome back, everyone, to Live Impact News. We're rejoining this announcement from Democratic veterans in Congress from just a few hours ago today. Many of them denouncing the potential that the military from the U.S. could be involved with any action in Venezuela in light of the now deposed leader, Nicolas Maduro, and his wife being under arrest and here in the United States, and a new leader being sworn in Venezuela. Let's listen in.
You heard powerful words backed by deep credibility from the members of Congress standing with me. But fundamentally, you heard from Americans who are willing to do our jobs here in Congress, just as we did our jobs serving the country in the armed services. We'd now be happy to take your questions, and because we are a military group, I will not hesitate to designate folks to answer them. I'm not going to answer all the questions myself, but if anyone would like to jump in, just speak up.
Did you, in the briefing, did you receive any indication that their justifications of law enforcement or national interest could be laying a predicate for actions in other countries like Cuba or Colombia?
Jim, you want to take this?
Look, obviously, we're not going into much about the briefing, and I don't think we should, based on the fact on the TS nature of that briefing. However, what we've seen from this administration is obviously statements that have made clear their intentions as to what they want to do when it comes to, as I said, this sphere of influence, this Don Roe doctrine that he so likes to brag about, basically letting others know that they will do whatever they want when it comes to intervention. And what's unfortunate, and what we have to stand up to, is that they're going to make up whatever they want when it comes to the legalities of these types of actions. I mean, this is the incoherence of this type of policy when they said the drug boats were about narco-terrorism, yet then they do regime change, and it's for law enforcement purposes. Like I said, this inconsistency leads to this instability, and unfortunately, that's why we have so much uncertainty at this point.
I'll just add that it's some...
All right, folks, and just want to let you know our time here on Live Impact is coming to a close, but we did want to let you know we have something very special for you coming up in the next hour here on WCNC+. We've got, Sean, can we pull up the bank? That router 4 shot. We've been looking at it all night long. That WCNC Charlotte Tower camera shot showing Bank of America Stadium. Of course, that's going to be rocking this Saturday when the Panthers take on the Rams at 4:30. Our Nick Carboni standing by to take over for a live stream of Panthers on the Plus for us tonight. You want to show that overhead shot? Just to prove that we got the receipts that Nick is here. There we go.
Big guest tonight, Jordan Rodriguez of The Athletic, former Charlotte Observer Panthers beat writer. So excited to have her on in a couple minutes.
All right. And with that, folks, we want to wrap it up here for Live Impact. We do thank you for being with us tonight. I'm Vanessa Rufus. And stay tuned. Panthers on the Plus is coming up in just about 2 minutes. Have a great night, folks.